Hello, welcome back to BlenderSushi live noding. In this video, I'm going to take you through a setup where we can create like a random walk, but this time it's a proper random walk. If you remember my previous video, like a while ago, where I create like a curve that's made of points being pushed by noise using animation nodes. That's one example where the point simply just walk around and it's doing like a kind of loop, but it's kind of always staying in the same place. But this time, if I show you the final results, it's gonna be more like this. So this is very similar. It's if you're using particles and kind of tracing the path of particles, but the difference is that this is totally procedural and everything is controlled by the number of seed, and we can easily change the seed and it's gonna give us different results. So there is no simulations here, it's all just a number. What inspired me or how I discovered this is actually by reading this example, The Random Walk by Omar. Actually, his website is called Square Clear Squircle Art. I think it's like square and circle together, and that's the name of the blog. But his example number 3 is really interesting. I never actually thought about this. There is a special kind of advanced options of animation node loop. It's called reassign loop parameter. Basically, in his example, he started with this starting point, which is 0, 0, 0, and then he plugged in this random vector and kind of pushing these starting points, but it's kind of looping, but it's keep the resulting value is keep feeding back into the loop, and so we have more like a free form kind of points. So at some points the curve will just disappear somewhere in a 3D. So instead of a point starting from 0, 0, 0 and being pushed by using the fractal wiggle and then keep kind of looping in the same place, this guy actually will kind of keep going out, kind of being pushed. So it's just doing like a random walk. So this is proper random walk instead of being pushed by the wiggle. So very similar to kind of if we are tracing the path of particles once again. And in my setup, I kind of improve on this setup, and I made like a multiple curve using instancer, so I can have like a 50 curves. So we have more, maybe 100, and it will be like slower over time, but you know, this is pretty much just like particle simulations, but it's all procedural. So yeah, I guess it's a bit experimentative, but that's what I use. That's what I actually like to do when doing live noding using animation nodes or Sverchok in Blender. So it's all about discovering things. So this is something new for me, and I want to share it with you guys. So thanks again, Omar, to show the proper random walk. I'm gonna close Safari so this can be a little bit faster. So let's start from scratch. So I kind of gonna do the same thing like Omar did with his random walk. Gonna switch to compositing. I will hide the lamp and the camera into different layer, and I will delete the default cube. I'm gonna save this as proper random walk 001, and this is animation nodes tutorial. I'm gonna save it. Okay, so let's switch to animation nodes, node 3, and create new. This is our 3D view. So where should we start? We start with an empty loop. So loop input, and we will need a starting point. So it's gonna be the new parameter. Let's name it just vector. And let's have a look at our loop. So this is gonna be the random walk. Iterations, we don't know how many yet. Let's just put in 10. Since I'm recording, I will switch this to turn off always and turn on frame change and property change. Okay, so I have this loop, and I don't have any output yet, but we know that this is the starting points. This is like 0, 0, 0. Okay, and we want to push the point, so we can use random vector. And we're gonna use vector math because we're gonna push this guy. So, and let's plug in this random vector into this guy, and let's have a look at the result now. We're gonna output a vector list. Actually, we do that by clicking this guy, new generator output. So it's gonna be vector. Let's have a look at the result for now. We know that this gonna generate some list based on this starting point. So if we debug the loop, let's check out the data. So that's just a number of vector. At the moment, it's just the same number of vector. We need to plug in the index into the seed and refresh. Now we have a kind of proper points. And in order to see like an object in 3D view, we need to turn the vector list into maybe curve. Okay, spline curve, object output, and create a new target and turn on spline and plug in the vector into the spline, and we have this created automatically. Spline from points and create spline list, and the result we need to also turn on bevel depth, and there you go, that's the result. This is kind of the old way that I have shown you in an earlier video. If we increase the number of iterations, we're gonna see that it just keeps generating the curve, but it's kind of staying the same points because the curve, I think what happened is this random vector is pushing the next points. However, it's always started from this 0, 0, 0. Okay, so this thing never go too far. No matter what, it's just still gonna stay in the same point. You know, it's kind of like if you're doing scribble using pen, and then you kind of just your hands stay in the same point, and you kind of scribbling, and that's basically what happening here. What you want is kind of imagine if your hand is kind of drawing the pen, and then you kind of close your eyes and just let the pen to keep drawing out. That's actually kind of the result that we want. So from Omar tutorial, apparently we can actually do that by using the loop. This is actually new for me. I never thought about this. If we select the loop and look at this, there is this advanced node settings. Now apparently there's this option called reassign. That's actually because we are using this parameter. If you don't have this parameter, this advanced option will not be there. So look at this. Look at the result now. If we click on this and you see we have a new node, and if we plug in this guy into that guy and update the result, you see now this is exactly kind of thing that much more interesting. I think I found obviously we still start from 0 0 0, but now the points kind of have, imagine if the points just like have his a mind of itself, and then it just keep going through each iterations. So it start from 0 0 0, but then it's get pushed by the random vector, and then instead of getting the value from the previous 0 0 0, it's kind of feeding into itself, and then this is the result that we get. So if we keep going, if I plug in the frame number into the iteration, and if I reset it to 0 0 0 from frame 0, and I play back, now it is as if the point is kind of, it's like a particle, you know, it's being pushed, and it's keep having this kind of like random directions. If you keep playing this until maybe 1000, you will see that eventually the points will disappear somewhere, you know. But this is totally interesting, you know. And we can also use vector wiggle. So instead of random is more like, you know, like totally random. But if you use wiggle, maybe wiggle is more kind of smooth, so it's kind of like a noise. So let's try using vector wiggle. Let's see what we're gonna get. Let's save this real quick. So we're still gonna use vector math, but instead of random vector, we're gonna use a vector wiggle. Vector wiggle, and here we're gonna plug in the index into the evolution, and the output plug into that guy. And I believe we should have a result. Okay, there you go. That's the wiggle. You see how it's the motion is kind of more smooth. It's kind of like a turbulence, and we can control the motion using speed. So the faster, the higher the speed, the more erratic is kind of the motion of the points. And on top of this, we have this seed. Depending on the seed value, it's gonna have a different result. Okay, so yeah, maybe the speed shouldn't be too high. The amplitude controls, let's say if I turn off the Z, the motion is gonna be just in the X and Y plane. That can be nice as well. Okay, so now let's kind of make this setup more complex. So instead of a single curve, I kind of want to create a setup where we can have like 100 curves, and each curve have maybe a different length, etc. How do we gonna do that? So in order to make it simple, I'm gonna create like a group node first. So let's tidy up this thing a little bit. We don't need the random factor now. So we have this factor wiggle. This is inside the loop. Okay. So that's the loop, which is this guy. But next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a group node. So kind of like a way to contain all this complexity and turn it into a single node. So create a subprograms group, and this is what we get. Here I'm gonna do something that's might be a little bit complicated, but so instead of having this guy in here, I'm gonna cut it here, and this is gonna be for the next loop. So I'm gonna loop I'm gonna have a loop over a loop, but this guy is gonna be the output node is gonna be the spline, and the iteration is gonna be the input. So we have iterations and we have the starting points, so we can randomize the starting points, we can randomize the iterations. We also want to have control over the seed, so I'm gonna plug in the seed into this guy and that guy. So, and call this random walk generator. And now we will see there's this random walk generator. So this is a single node, and with this guy we can actually loop it again inside another loop. So that's a little bit advanced, but you will see that it's not that complicated. And I will now create an object instancer, because we want to have like a multiple curve, right? So we need to have object instancer and turn off copy from source, but we know this is going to be a curve 3D, so turn that on. Instances, we don't know how many, but just give it maybe 5 for now. And here, this is where I usually loop the loops. So I'm gonna loop through this instance, and for each instance I'm gonna give a different kind of data, which is it's coming from this random walk. Okay, so this is our random walk generator. We have create spline list, blah blah blah. Let me have a think first how to do this. So this is the object instancer, and I know that we're gonna copy the output of this. So this is the way I think this is kind of like a single operations, and copy object data, I think that's the one we need. So basically, okay, we currently have 5 copy of curve, but it's kind of empty container of curve object, and we're gonna plug this into that guy. But here we have kind of a way to generate random walk curve. So I'm gonna plug this into that guy, and the target's gonna be let me think. I think the target should be the objects. Yeah, maybe we don't need copy object data actually. Let's plug this in sensor directly to that guy. So we have a single object. Actually, we have multiple copy already. You can tell from the name, except that they're all doing the same thing. So we need to have a different seed, plug in the index into the seed, and there you go, we have like a multiple random walk. So that's cool. It's actually easier than I thought. So we don't actually need a copy object data. I will delete the grease pencil. Bevel fill mode, maybe. Let's switch this to full. Okay, let's delete the grease pencil or just hide it. This is 629 iterations for each one of them. I believe we can actually randomize the iterations for each curve, but I'm just gonna leave it there. The starting points can be random as well. Let me try. Random vector. Give it a plug this into the seed. Plug this into the vector. Now you see the starting points of this line is all slightly different. And let's turn on the amplitude on the z-axis as well. So it's kind of doing it in all directions. If we want, we actually can use line here, line mesh. And let's see if I plug this in there. Plug the index there. Ten steps, 10 instances. Maybe don't worry about that. It's just me trying to randomize the starting points. 0, 0, 0 for starting points is fine. You can randomize that bit, and the iterations also you can randomize. You can if you plug in the frame number into the iterations, you will get something that looks like this. Gonna go to full screen and Alt A, and you see it's just like a points doing random walk, and it's gonna just keep doing it until the end of the time, or depending on what's the last frame number you give here. You can give it like 10,000, and it's just gonna keep doing. So this is cool because it's kind of generative, so it's you never know what's the final result's gonna be, so it's just gonna keep creating this random lines. Kind of in the past I was doing this using particles, so and you can have like maybe 100 particle system, and for each particles you kind of tracing the path of particles. This is exactly the same thing. Probably with particles, the advantage is like you can use the particle system and control the particles using field, you know, like turbulence or maybe smoke. If we are doing it like this, the advantage is that you have control over where the points should go, but more procedurally. So yeah, so just another way to do that that sort of thing. Yeah, so that's pretty much it that I want to talk about in this video. Just this guy, reassign loop parameter. That's the key in this kind of a loop. So instead of having a points that's and kind of resetting the loop each time, this one kind of keep pushing the value, and yeah, it's kind of like iterations. I didn't know that animation nodes can do this until today after reading Omar's blog. So there we go. That's a proper random walk using animation nodes. Hopefully you find this video to be useful. You can leave comments down below if you have any question and maybe suggestion for me to improve this. If you like the channel, please subscribe to the channel so I can make more video like this. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.